Hi guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the 9 things, or I'm going to say maybe the 8 to 9 things that we tend to miss in the lives of individuals who have experienced trauma. You know, I find that when I'm working with certain trauma victims or individuals who have experienced traumatic situations, they tend to prejudge themselves, and they prejudge themselves based on the fact that, you know, they feel that they should have healed by now. They feel like they should not have, you know, been so affected by the experience that happened to them. They also hear other people saying things like, when are you going to get over this? You know, when are you going to move past this? So today's video is going to highlight some of the misconceptions and some of the things that we miss about trauma and the healing process and everything that's happening there. So thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For those who are subscribed, and for those who are new to the channel, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so that you can stick around with us and learn and grow and become a part of our supportive and validating community. The benefits for you in today's video is that I'm going to point out some things that we tend to miss. Let's just call them misconceptions of trauma, because a lot of people tend to believe that, you know, trauma should be a certain way, and when that doesn't happen, or when the process of healing from trauma doesn't happen in the way that the person feels it should, then things kind of look differently, and sometimes the healing process is a lot longer than we think. So we're going to focus on that in today's video. So let's go ahead and just jump in. All right. So the first thing that I try to make sure that a lot of my clients understand about trauma is, you know, that everybody is different, right? There's a different mindset, different emotions, different kind of traumatic situation, you know, different way that one perceives life, you know, different genes, different biology, different, you know, different neurology, all of it. Those differences really does set us up to experience trauma differently. And so we're not going to all come through the experience of trauma in the same way. And so that's the number one thing I try to get my clients to understand. The second thing I try to get my clients to understand is that, you know, trauma really is a journey. It's not just one experience and, you know, boom, I'm going to go to therapy and things are going to be better. Trauma is actually a life journey, and so you have to process the trauma. You have to kind of learn some ways to deal with it and process it better. You also have to learn to get treatment for it so that you can move on in a healthy fashion. And then you also have to learn to be okay with what happened to you, and that can take years. It could take, you know, decades. I have a client right now who's about 75 years old, and she was traumatized when she was the age of 7. So, you know, it took her a long time to get over this. So trauma is a journey. You know, I find that most people beat themselves up when they're not healed in the time that they think they should be. So I think this video is going to help clarify some things. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to take to heart and to keep in mind is that sometimes talk therapy for trauma doesn't work. Sometimes it makes things worse. If you think about it, if you're not really ready to talk about a situation, or you're not really ready to deal with it, or you're not really ready to look back over what happened to you, then the likelihood of you being re-traumatized trying to relive that situation in therapy is really high. If you're not ready, you're just not ready. So talk therapy can actually make things worse. The next thing is that talk therapy can make things worse if you have the wrong therapist. A lot of people believe that a therapist is the therapist, and that is not true. You need a specialist or someone who is able to help you, somebody who is able to actually intellectually and psychologically and emotionally experience things that you're experiencing, or at least meet you at the same level. If you don't have that, then that therapist is not going to be able to help you. You don't want to go to a therapist who does marital counseling and you really need help on healing from trauma. The two are very different. And so, you know, the experience of the therapist is different. The way that they perceive things is really different. Their mindset and how to heal is different. So you want to make sure that you have the right therapist, okay? The next one is that therapy alone may not be enough. You might need medication. You might need a change in scenery. You might need to move away. You might need to learn to put up boundaries. You might need to get rid of toxic and narcissistic people in your life, right? There's a variety of things that may need to happen in addition to therapy. And so I think it's important that we understand that as well. If we're just in therapy hoping that things will get better, it may not work out that way. A lot of times in the sessions with my kids, I try to make sure, and even with my adult clients or my teenagers, I try to make sure that they understand that trauma therapy is great, but you're also going to need probably medication to get through some of the depression and the anxiety, some of the post-traumatic stress, and then you might also need vitamins to kind of help you manage the symptoms just a little bit better. Okay. The next is that trauma is more than just one experience. Okay. I want you to keep that in mind as well. The trauma can actually be, like I said at the beginning, it can actually be a journey, or trauma can happen at multiple points throughout your life, right? Maybe you have childhood trauma, maybe you have adult trauma, maybe you have middle age adult trauma, right? So trauma can hit you at various times and points in your life. And so it's really not that easy or fair to say that trauma is one event, because it's not, okay? The next is that trauma can have lifelong consequences for you, meaning that you may struggle with alcoholism for the rest of your life. You may struggle with drug addiction for the rest of your life. You may struggle with pornography for the rest of your life. You may struggle with getting into legal trouble for the rest of your life, right? You may struggle with depression or suicidal thoughts or cutting for the rest of your life. There are long-term consequences that can happen for individuals who have been traumatized. I think it's important for trauma victims or individuals who have experienced trauma to understand that, again, trauma is not one event. It can happen to you multiple times throughout your lifespan, or it could be something that you're trying to heal over your lifespan. So it's going to be with you daily. It's going to be in your mind. It's going to be in your heart. And then we also can't forget that trauma is also neurological as well. So, you've got brain components that I talk about in this video up here. You have brain components that are also a part of the picture and that we also need to work with. You also need to be mindful of nutrition and your social relationships and your romantic relationships and your family involvement and your perception and changing some of the negative thoughts. So there's a lot that goes into rebuilding who you are as a human being after trauma. So thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if it was helpful to you, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stick around with us. We're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to continue to talk about this topic until November. November, we're going to start delving in a little bit more about the holidays and how to deal with family and toxic people. So stick around for that. I will see you on Monday. Bye.